Welcome to AZ with Mike and Staci.
I'm Staci.
And I'm Mike.
So today's topic is going to be to all you buyers out there who have a significant other. First and foremost, you both need to be on the same page. No matter how many people are going to be purchasing a home, you need to be on the same page. You need to be on the same page with your lender, and you need to be on the same page with the realtor. The reason this is so important is so many times, so take my side, for instance, on the lending side of it, what'll happen is there will be certain debt that maybe one of the two aren't aware of that might cause you not to be able to qualify for that price home. Or it might be they don't pay their credit card and maybe they have a lower credit score. I've seen in the past 20 plus years that everybody comes in, they do online application. Once I sit down and meet with them, it's a bit friction because somebody didn't tell the other one they had a certain debt or possibly they don't pay their bills on time. On the real estate side of it,
It applies slightly less than it does on the lending side. On the lending side, there are folks that still believe they can hide things, even not only from their significant other, but from the lender. And I'm going to break this to you. You can't. On the real estate side, my side is that it's important for me to know what the wants are by both parties, primarily so we don't waste a lot of your time showing properties that are not going to ever be considered. Recently, I had a client who needed a home that met the criteria of Vastu Shastra. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's actually quite fascinating. It's basically the Indian version of feng shui. But that wasn't explained to me until we were 3 offers into the process and the homes kept getting vetoed and there were reasons found not to buy the home. So we could have saved not only the buyer's time, but we could have saved everybody's time, including the folks trying to sell their homes, by having known that right up front. So sometimes there's a fear in being honest, but really in this type of process, it's incredibly important just to tell the truth, just to be upfront about it. Even if I think that in my example, the buyer who I was working with, he didn't feel like that was something that should be taken seriously. However, there are often 2 parties involved in this decision. And as far as I'm concerned, if it's important to one party, it's important to me. So be sure to be forthcoming. And
guys, the lender and the realtor, this is about you. This isn't about us. This is about what you want. This is about where you're starting your wealth, right? You're going to buy a home. This is where you're going to raise your family. This is where you're going to be for several years. You want to have what you want. If you end up settling for something, you might have to, but pick out what you want to settle for. Do you want to maybe not have a 3-car garage and have a 2-car garage because you have a swimming pool and a hot tub instead of just a swimming pool? You just want to be very clear. There's no judgment here at all. On a lender and a realtor, we are here to help you. We are not here to judge you.
Right. We're not here to tell you what to do either. At the end of the day, finding the perfect home may not happen. Oftentimes it's a compromise from one thing to the other. It just depends. Also, it's the same for the lender. I mean, you can often make the mistake of going online and seeing what your payment might be on a home. But the problem is if you're not talking to somebody, a human, then there's no way to know what those payments actually are because they can't take into consideration insurance and taxes and all of the other things, all of the different variables that you need to know in order to figure out what your acceptable payment is. And then you're going to be able to decide what properties you can look at. And then you come to me and then we determine what you're willing to give up, what you're not willing to give up. We need to know the truth. We need to know what you actually want, everybody involved in the transaction, in order for us to do the best job we can.
Including school districts as well if you have children. So back to the payment thing, what he's talking about, if you go online and say you go to Zillow or I think it's rate.com or something like that, And if you put in a purchase price of a home, a certain down payment, that doesn't count for what your credit score is, what your interest rate might be. You have homeowners insurance, you have property taxes, you might have a homeowners association, you might have a flood, you might be in a flood zone. There's so many different things that go into it. For instance, we have 3 homeowners associations. When we closed, there was only 2. We moved in, there were 3. There's things that, the lender should pick up on. That didn't happen. I don't know why. Point being, you don't know what your payment's going to be really until you get down in an application, you get a full qualification, you find a specific home, because they're all different on what they do require you to have, basically.
That's incredibly important. Every single scenario is unique, and you can set yourself up for a lot of disappointment if you go to bankrate.com, is what she's talking to, and simply dial in what your mortgage payment would be. And because then all of a sudden you think that this, I don't know, let's just take $1 million house, is only going to cost this much money, and you can afford that in your mind. But the problem is that it may only be half of what the actual payment's going to be. So it's incredibly important. And I know there's a lot of consternation about talking to a human, because all too often our industries can be very almost overwhelming. We call you all the time. We email you all the time. I don't do that, but I know that there are people who do. The reality is that if you're not talking to a human, unfortunately, you're not getting the actual numbers you need to determine whether or not you can or cannot buy a home. And I want everybody to own a home. My drive, my mission is to have everybody I know own property of some kind, because I think that's genuinely participating in this American dream. So I just want you to know what's actually going on, and I want you to make sure that you're speaking to a live person and sharing all of these things and being honest with them and making sure that they're giving you information that then you can determine for yourself what's right and what's not.
It's very important, because a lot of times what will happen is we get people all the time that have gone to, say, 3 or 4 lenders. That's great. I think it's fantastic. But what the crazy thing is when you have someone meet with you and then they say, well, that wasn't said to me. And it's like, well, that is included. Just because somebody tells you something that sounds great doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. Doesn't necessarily mean, oh, well, you know what? You don't have a homeowners association. Well, you do. Or you don't have flood insurance, and you do once there's a contract.
So this speaks,
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. This speaks to trust. And it's kind of unfortunately, it's a rough road out there trying to determine in every aspect of life who you trust and who you don't. What I think helps the most is if you ask your friends and you take direct referrals from other people. I like those best. I prefer those. It doesn't mean they're always right, but I like it better than going with the person who is advertising most on the radio, or has their giant head on the back of a bus, or has 500 signs up in the subdivision that you want to live in. Because all of those things are nice, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person who is doing those things knows what they're talking about or can be trusted.
Sometimes they can. What he's trying to get at, and I'm going to just because of what we've experienced in the past, is we used to live in New Mexico, and it was very, very, very common that somebody would say, oh, so-and-so has this whole area. Newsflash, nobody has a whole area. And a lot of people will have business, significant business, and you never meet that person. It's very critical that you know your lender, you know your realtor, you have a relationship with them, because you're making one of the biggest investments of your life. Short of getting married and having a baby, owning a home. There's your 3 top things that are going to be the biggest thing in your life, possibly career.
And your lender should be somebody that you return to. Remember, your lender is going to know things about you that I don't want to know. I don't want to know everything. All I need to know is that what you want and that you can perform on whatever you decide you want. That's it. I don't want to know your deepest, darkest secrets. I don't want to know about your $85,000 Mustang that you never told your wife about. I don't want to know about your expensive...
That's a personal friend that we've had that happen to.
Expensive purse habit that you don't want your husband to know about. I don't want to know those things. And your lender will know those things. So deeply personal relationship with your lender and long term. A very different personal relationship with your real estate advisor or your real estate agent that is different. It's a bit more psychological versus reality on spending habits and things like that. So kind of keep those things in mind. And all we're really saying is make sure that everybody that's a party to the transaction is not only on the same page with the lender, but is on the same page with the realtor. It will save you a lot of, as well as you. It'll save you a lot of time and anguish.
So don't forget, make sure you and your significant other are on the same page prior to starting your home search or even qualifying.
Or at least make an effort.
Yes, do it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.